Welcome to the Therapy for Black Girls podcast, a weekly conversation about mental health, personal development, and all the small decisions we can make to become the best possible versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia. To get more information, visit the website at therapyforblackgirls.com. And while I hope you love listening to and learning from the podcast, it is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Hey y'all. Thanks so much for joining me for session 82 of the Therapy for Black Girls podcast. I wanted to chat with you a little bit this week about how the words we speak can be a reflection of how we feel about ourselves and some of the mental processes that are going on in the background. One of the big culprits is should. You know what I'm talking about. I should really work out more. Or I should be further along in my career by now. You know what I'm talking about? Does that sound familiar? The thing with shoulds is that they really are not setting us up for success. Shoulds already make us feel like we're starting at a deficit and that we're not doing enough. And of course, when we go too far with this thinking, we either overcompensate and move toward exhaustion and overwhelm, or we feel defeated and don't make any progress towards our goals. So what can you do if you're caught with a bad case of the shoulds? Step 1. The very first thing is that you have to be conscious of this behavior. For the next week, I want you to pay attention to your language and make yourself a note of any time you use the word should. What are you discussing? Who are you talking to? Generally, how are you feeling about yourself in that moment? You might find that you have a tendency to use should more when you're talking to a certain person or about a certain topic, or when you're feeling a certain way about yourself. Step 2. If you find that the shoulds don't come up as much when you're talking with others, but come up a lot in your self-talk, pay attention to that. What story are you telling yourself about what your life should look like right now? And where did it come from? A lot of times when we do a little digging, we realize that the ideas we're holding on to and the goals we're trying to achieve aren't really ours in the first place. Step 3. Practice being compassionate with yourself. It's likely that if your life is full of a lot of shoulds, you're very critical of yourself and you might be holding yourself to a standard that isn't even realistic. What would happen if you relax that a little? For example, let's say one of your shoulds is, I should be further along in my career by now. What if instead of focusing on what is not, you focused on all the things you have actually accomplished up to this point, career and otherwise? Does that now give you something else to focus on? Step 4. If you dig into the shoulds and you realize it's something you truly do want for yourself, not just someone else's vision for your life, what goal can you set that would get you a little closer to what you're saying you'd like to have happen? So if we stick with the example of furthering your career, let's say you set a goal of getting a promotion within the next year. What's the smallest action you can take towards getting some movement on this goal? Maybe it's something like asking for a meeting with a key player in your office, or sending your boss some thoughts about a new project you're working on to show them your initiative. Any movement forward is a good thing. And finally, step 5. You want to find some other phrases to use in place of should. You might try something like, I would like to be further along in my career. Do you see how that already opens itself up for possibilities as opposed to the automatic shutting down that happens when you say, I should be further along? Some other language bandits to be aware of are things like must, need, always, and never. I must finish college in 4 years. Really? Do you need to? I need to be married by age 35. Really? Says who? My friends always leave me out. Okay, so they never include you? I never have healthy relationships. You can't tell me about one? Do you see how each of these leaves some room for us to do some reality testing? A lot of times when we speak in extremes like these, we limit ourselves, and it can make it difficult for us to really see other perspectives that we hadn't considered. So I'm curious to hear what this might look like for you. Are you guilty of using any of these words excessively? And how has it impacted you? Share your thoughts with me either on Twitter or IG, and make sure to use the hashtag TBGInSession or tag our accounts so that I can keep up with the conversation. Before we wrap up today, I also want to share something exciting with you guys. In the past year, and some change since I've been doing the podcast, I've realized that the thing I love most about this work is really being in community with y'all and seeing you be in community with one another. And because of this, I want to introduce you and invite you to join me in our brand new Therapy for Black Girls community called the Yellow Couch Collective. The Yellow Couch Collective is going to be our space to really practice some of the things we talk about on the podcast, and our space to really focus on developing and strengthening the relationships y'all have with one another. Every month, we're going to have another deep dive on a particular topic. It'll be complete with practice exercises, readings, and discussions. For the rest of this month, we'll be focusing on assertive communication, because I think that when we learn to be more assertive in our communication, it sets us up for success in a lot of other areas in our lives. Every month, we'll also be having live Q&A sessions with some of your favorite experts from the podcast. Our very first expert will be Shamira Howard, who you heard a couple of episodes ago, talking more about sexual freedom and what that can look like for us as Black women. There will also be meetups with other members of the Yellow Couch Collective that are near you in your area. So if you've been looking for a way to meet new people in your area who already have at least one thing in common, this might be a great way to do it. I'm so excited about this, y'all, and I think that you will be too. So if you want to learn more information about it, or if you already know that you are in, go ahead and visit therapyforblackgirls.com/YCC and join us now. Don't forget that if you're looking for a therapist in your area, visit the therapist directory at therapyforblackgirls.com/directory. And don't forget to grab your TBG swag in our store at therapyforblackgirls.com/shop. Thank y'all so much for joining me again this week. I hope you have a great week, and I am looking forward to seeing you and chatting with you in the Yellow Couch Collective. Take good care.